This story I pulled yesterday. It came out at 6 a.m. from the AP. I've been waiting to see if anybody would provide some analysis for this story. Have them on. As far as I've seen, nobody has covered this story. The AP does a blockbuster report that, as far as I can tell, it would appear there are numerous violations of federal statutes here. And nobody has covered it so far. Part of it could be it's a weird time to drop a story like this on a Wednesday. It's also a weird time to do it in the slowest news time. Everybody's on vacation. For those people who have jobs, they're on vacation. And hopefully next week I was planning to go to the beach. I don't think that's going to happen. But I will be back live probably on Thursday. I'm going to be live tomorrow from my cave. But we will effort somebody to give us some analysis about the potential legal implications of this story. It's a big one, folks. And like I say, it's provided by the AP. It started to unravel in June of 2009, 2 years ago. Apparently, a superintendent went into an apartment in New Brunswick, New Jersey, and saw what he thought was basically like the apartment of a terrorist cell. He saw terrorist literature on a table, computer, surveillance equipment, all of this stuff. He freaked out. He called the FBI. They went into the building, the FBI did, and what they found was not an apartment of a terrorist cell, but a surveillance post in New Brunswick, New Jersey, of the New York Police Department. Now, for those of you who are not from the Northeast, New Jersey is not New York City. For those of you who come into the city, or I remember growing up as a kid, whenever you met anybody who said, I'm from New York City, if you asked them where, they would say New Jersey. If someone was from New York City, they would say, I'm from the city. Because they didn't realize that, there are other cities in America. If they said they were from New York City, you could be sure they were from New Jersey.
That's true. I can verify that.
So, apparently, since September 11th, 2001, the New York Police Department has become one of the country's most aggressive domestic intelligence agencies. The AP did this blockbuster report, and it found that the New York Police Department operates way outside of New York City. It targets ethnic communities. Try and guess which ones. I can assure you it's not Crown Heights. And it does so in a way that would clearly run afoul of civil liberties laws if practiced by the federal government. I still think there are numerous statutes here that have been broken. But here's the real kicker. It does so with unprecedented help from the CIA. Now, remember, as I go through this story, the CIA is legally prohibited from doing any domestic spying. None. That is a purview for the FBI. And there's a specific reason for that, because it's pretty problematic. The CIA works with far less oversight than any other agency in the country, except short of, I think, apparently, the New York City Police Department. The City Council of New York City, which finances the police department, has no idea what's going on. the police department, I guess, sends out what they call rakers into minority neighborhoods, and they do this human mapping program. We'll get into this as we go on, but apparently what they do is they go around and they just take record of all little, bodegas run by Pakistanis, cab stops. This is where this person hangs out. This is where that person hangs out. A veteran CIA officer, while still on the CIA's payroll, was the architect of this program. And this program is ongoing. As of last month, a CIA agent on the payroll of the CIA has been working inside New York City Police headquarters. Apparently, any information that has been derived from this program has been kept out of the courts because they're afraid of how the courts are going to react to this. I wonder why. It starts apparently back in January of 2002. There was a former CIA agent, David Cohen, who was hired to head up the police department's intelligence unit. He basically went back to the CIA, still had friends, maybe it was a reunion party. Asked the CIA for help. George Tenet sent a guy named Larry Sanchez, who had served as a CIA official inside the United Nations, to go to the New York Police Department and set up a bunch of different programs. Now, there are times where CIA agents apparently are lent to other agencies, but they are no longer paid by the CIA because it's against the law for the CIA to spy on Americans inside this country. Tenet kept this guy on the CIA payroll. There has never, at least to our knowledge, ever been an arrangement like this one. And apparently there was some controversy within the CIA as to Tenet sending this guy and keeping him on the CIA payroll. Now, as this guy Cohen, who headed up this intelligence unit, developed his vision for a unit within the New York Police Department that essentially had the same powers as the CIA, one tiny problem existed. Since 1985, the New York Police Department had operated under a federal court order which limited the tactics they could use to gather intelligence. Because apparently, and I think it's well known, during the 1960s and 70s, the New York Police Department had sort of gone hog wild in trying to track down domestic terrorists like, members of the Weather Underground and presumably going beyond just terrorists to people who were just politically dissenting at the time. So, to settle a lawsuit at that time, the police department set up very specific guidelines that required very specific information that there was some type of criminal activity taking place before they could in any way monitor political activity in New York City. Apparently in 2002, this guy Cohen told a federal judge that that's too restrictive. We can't find terrorist plots if we can't go after people who are involved in just, political activity. So Charles Haight, who was a U.S. district judge, basically said we're going to have to throw out those guidelines. It's a new day dawning. And you guys can just do basically whatever you want. And apparently, one of these units, called the demographic unit, which profiles people. I mean, it's a unit built to profile, had never been exposed before this AP report. What they do is they are mapping these ethnic neighborhoods. And it is probably very close to the line, if not well over it, in terms of crossing the line about federal statutes about ethnic profiling. In 2007, the LA Police Department tried to implement a program like this human mapping. And William Bratton, who was the chief of police at the time, scrapped it because people said, you can't do this. And he said, a lot of the people that we're mapping here, or Bratton said, a lot of these people came from countries where the police were terrorists. We don't do that here. We don't want to spread that fear. So the lesson, apparently, that New York officials learned from this was, you don't tell anybody. You keep it completely secret. And the police apparently have been regularly shredding any of these documents that even mention these police rakers. So when Cohen went to this federal judge, however, he said, we promise to abide by the FBI's investigative guidelines. We will actually apply certain guidelines. They won't be the ones that were imposed on the city because of the abuses that took place in the 60s and 70s. We'll follow the FBI guidelines. However, that said, the FBI is not allowed to have undercover agents unless there's specific evidence of criminal conduct. And the police department apparently has not held any of those guidelines. Of course, the police department, when asked about this, said, "Oh no, we're not breaking any civil, we're not breaking any civil rights." Now, how do we know that where have we seen some of the clues of the existence of this? Apparently, there is a lawsuit that was filed on behalf of anti-war groups back in 2004 who were protesting the Republican National Convention. And these undercover officers were involved in infiltrating these groups. When protesters were arrested and penned in on that on Chelsea Piers over here, they were asked questions like, what are your political affiliations? Do you do any kind of political work? Do you hate George W. Bush? Christopher Dunn, a New York Civil Liberties Union lawyer involved in the convention lawsuit, said, at the end of the day, it's pure and simple rogue domestic surveillance operation. Detectives have used informants known as moss crawlers to monitor weekly sermons and report what was said. Several current and former officials directly involved in the program have said. If FBI agents were to do that, they would be in violation of the Privacy Act, which prohibits the federal government from collecting intelligence on purely First Amendment activities. The FBI, and any time they have done this, have been required some evidence of a crime before an informant can be used inside of a mosque. The FBI cannot troll mosques just looking around, seeing what's going on. And that is why senior FBI officials, according to this AP story in New York, ordered their own agents not to accept any reports from the NYPD mosque crawlers. You see how the FBI, not only has the FBI been shut out of this, but to the extent that they had access to any of this information, they don't want any of it because it is complete. This is the same thing that the FBI did when it came to Abu Ghraib. Apparently, the intelligence division for the NYPD has asked the taxi commission to run a report on all city Pakistani cab drivers. Does that sound like profiling to you? That strategy has been outright rejected in other cities. The Boston police chief wants to ask Cambridge to do the same thing. The Cambridge police chief said, no effing way. So this guy Cohen, his undercover squad, the Special Services Unit, has operated in such places like New Jersey, which, like I say, is different from New York City, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts. And those are just places where the cops, apparently, when they were surveilling people, got pulled over by other cops and said, what are you doing? The NYPD apparently also inserted their spies into the UN and brushed up against the FBI there. The AP has agreed not to disclose details of either the FBI or NYPD operations at the UN because they involve foreign counterintelligence. So this guy Sanchez, who was on the FBI payroll, his assignment in New York ended in 2004, but he ended up leaving the CIA or taking a leave to become Cohen's deputy. He ended up resigning last year, retiring last year, and is now a consultant in the Middle East. However, this program is ongoing. Last month, the CIA sent one of its most experienced operatives, a former station chief in 2 Middle East countries, to work out of police headquarters as Cohen's special assistant while still being on the CIA payroll. The department's primary watchdog, the New York City Council, has not held a single hearing on the Intelligence Division's operations, and council members typically do not ask for details. The New York City Police Intelligence Unit last year had a $62 million budget, which has never been audited by the city comptroller's office. In 2003, the Justice Department put out detailed rules against racial profiling, including prohibiting agencies from considering race when making traffic stops or assigning patrols. I wonder if getting dossiers on every Pakistani cab driver falls into racial profiling. Those rules only apply to the federal government, however. And so it's unclear as to whether or not there is a specific statute for the cops. I imagine there is. And I imagine you're going to be hearing more about this story as we go forward. We're going to hold off on a break for a minute because there's another story I want to talk about. And folks, I don't know why this has not gotten more dissemination. But chalk one up for the Majority Report. Now you know. 33 cents a day. I will remain. I'll bite my lip about being crass about joining this, becoming a member, and maintaining this on. Now, of course, you could have read this piece, and I imagine some of them, hopefully, some of them did. But it is massive. It really is a massive story, and I don't know why they didn't put it out in 5 different segments. To be honest with you, because it's a big story.